Hi, good morning to everyone. In this session named Diversifying Ecosystems, we are in the company of leader business figures that will provide us with key elements to define the global partnership we need to ensure a European leadership in digitalization. We are going to start our discussion with the opening remarks of Mr. Abraham Liu, Chief Representative to the EU institutions and Vice President European region of Huawei. Mr. Liu graduated from Central South University of China in 2001 after earning a bachelor degree in computer science and technology. The same year, he joined Huawei, the company where he has held many important posts before joining the Brussels and European team in 2018. Building on his global expertise in Africa, Southern Pacific, and Malaysia, and now Europe, I'm sure his intervention will provide us with an excellent overview on the global partnership needed to develop European digitalization. Thank you, Mr. Liu, for being here. We have also with us Mrs. Stephanie De Bruyn, Chief Executive Officer of Belgian Mobile ID, the company behind the successful identity app It's Me copyright registered mark. In these times, when the combination of the digital user experience and security are more important than ever, she wants to continue building the future of a digital identity in Belgium and the rest of Europe. Stephanie has many years of experience in the financial and digital world, where she has developed successful initiatives, including her involvement in the startup of a European fintech player before taking over the helm of Belgian Mobile ID. Thank you very much for being here, Mrs. De Bruyn. And our last speaker is Mr. Jean-Claude Guinozzi, Chief Executive Officer of Quant, Managing Director with 25 years of experience in this in the technology, content, and consumer electronic sectors. Jean-Claude was General Manager of the Retail, Sales, and Marketing Division at Microsoft France. In parallel, he represented the video game industry in France as president of the Syndicate of Leisure Publishers and Software, SEL. He started his career in large European groups, Italy and France, and marketing and sales positions before assuming general management and CEO position. He's a graduate of the London Business School and the Graduate School of Management. Welcome to this session to the three of you. There are three questions we may try to respond in our discussion, if I may say. What does the European technology landscape look like, and what does it need to compete and provide the autonomy that we are discussing today? This is one of them. How can global partnerships with non-European tech firms enable growth of European businesses and help to diversify the ecosystem, drive greater competition and choice? And last, what are the values that should be reflected in Europe's drive for digital autonomy? These are important questions, and I'm sure that we can stay long hours discussing them, but we have just 1 hour. So let us start with the opening remarks of Mr. Abraham Liu. Mr. Liu, the floor is yours, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. It is really indeed an honor to be here and listen to the esteemed speakers before me. As you can imagine, this is important for Huawei. And what does digital sovereignty means for Europe? The concept of sovereignty is rooted in the benefit of citizens, and digital sovereignty does not mean digital autarky. And this difference is extremely important now because of how interconnected global ICT is. For Europe to benefit from the strategic autonomy in practice, as the Portuguese ambassador said just now, it has to be open. So open strategic autonomy means Europe has more room to make its own decision, and European customers will have more choices and access to the best technology regardless of where it is from. It will also lead to European rules being protected and respected by companies from all over the world who will embed EU values into technologies that is then sold all over the world. And finally, it will also allow Europe to rightfully maintain its status as the standard setter for the world. And while we fully support this step in the right direction, and that makes Huawei one of the biggest enablers of the European digital sovereignty. And Huawei contributes to the EU digital sovereignty in three very important ways. Number one, Huawei, we are one of the major investors and partners to European industry. And second, we want to ensure that data and innovation stays in Europe. Thirdly, we are helping build a secure European digital ecosystem to unlock open strategic autonomy for Europe. First, Huawei continues to invest heavily in Europe in European industry production. Huawei's priorities, including building the new facilities for 5G production to make 5G for Europe made in Europe. The ones has been recently decided to put somewhere near to Strasbourg. The opening advanced technology research facilities and new centers for excellences in cybersecurity, transparency, supply chain, and network operations, etc. Our partners not only include industry leaders like Audi and BMW, but also champions like Airbus, and enabling key infrastructure providers like the ports. Secondly, over the next 5 years, while we will continue to commit to invest more in the research and development. Take the artificial intelligence as an example. We have committed to invest 100 million euro in the development of a robust AI ecosystem in Europe, partnering to connect industry leaders with at least 200,000 developers, 500 ISV partners, as well as 50 universities and research institutes to boost innovation. Thirdly, Huawei is contributing to developing global standards together with the European organizations and making huge contribution to the development of the European IP. In fact, Huawei continues to accelerate open source implementation in Europe through open source AI ecosystem building efforts that also soon we are the Harmony OS, which is the operating system for the smart devices. And we are doing this. Why are we doing this? We strongly believe in and support the cybersecurity laws, and our spotless track record reflects to this. Huawei has not had a single major security incident in the past 20 years operation in Europe, and yet there are still many politicians are saying that they don't trust us. Well, this is of course hurts Huawei as a company originated from China, but I personally think this is okay. It is fine to not trust us, and the trust we have won in the past 20 years from our customers was not for granted. Because actually at the end of the day, you cannot and should not trust anyone in terms of the technology and the security, because technology and the security is simply too important to be left to trust only. And we know now that what matters is not where the company is from, but how the technology is designed and implemented, and what the business model and the commercial incentives are. And we see this with every major cybersecurity incident. And we also see this with violence and extremism in society because of the business models that accelerate polarization. And this is why I also firmly believe that Europe should set the rules. It should also remain open to every multinational companies like ours can follow these rules. Huawei is not only helping globalize European laws and standards, for example, GDPR, the cybersecurity standards, through its devices, but it is also developing applications collaboratively by sharing our intellectual property with the European startups and developers, and concretely supporting the building a European tech ecosystem. We want to ensure European citizens have access to the best technologies, the best privacy, and the best security, without having to rely on trust or being restricted by lacking of choice or cost. So overall, I fully agree what the ambassador has mentioned. This strategic autonomy has to be open. And Mr. Marcus Reicher said, digital sovereignty is about create options. So in this case, I firmly believe Huawei is in line with the European values, and we are the natural contributor to the European digital sovereignty. Thank you very much.
Liu, I'm going directly to give the floor to the next speaker, that is Mrs. Stephanie De Bruin. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Iban, and Happy New Year to everyone, and thank you for having me in this conference. I feel very honored to be part of this esteemed list of speakers. So I'm the CEO of Belgian Mobile ID, the company behind the identity app It's Me. And I'll maybe start by giving some explanation on our product and on digital identities in C. So what is a digital identity? A digital identity actually ties a digital user to a physical person. And so how does it work concretely with It's Me? If a user creates an It's Me account, we actually capture the data that are on his identity card. And as of that moment, the user can use It's Me for 4 kinds of functionalities or actions. So first of all, the digital identity can be used to register for a website or become a customer, for example, avoiding then to fill all kinds of complex forms. Secondly, It's Me can also be used to log in to a website, to confirm actions and confirm a purchase. And last but not least, you can also electronically sign documents. So just to give you a couple of concrete examples of how it works in Belgium. So It's Me is used to, for example, file your taxes, to consult the results of your COVID tests, to log into your bank accounts, and even to sign your contracts, for example, for a rental car. So It's Me is really used across different use cases and across a lot of different industries and sectors. In the future, we want to expand our scope even further. So today we store the identity data that are also to be found on the identity card, but as an individual, you're obviously defined by a lot of other data as well, driving licenses, medical records, etc. We don't want to host those data, just to be fully clear, but we want to make the link with other data sources and use It's Me as a verified identity, as a consent tool to enable the data sharing, which is obviously a topic that comes up a lot in the debates at European level. Now, obviously, if you talk about data sharing, you need to have very solid values. So the values of It's Me are, first of all, security, then absolute respect for data privacy, and obviously also user experience, because that's crucial for adoption. So once you have created the It's Me account, no matter what action you do, you always have exactly the same user experience. Maybe just to give some numbers, we were founded in 2017, and in a period of 3 years' time, we have nearly 3 million users. So that means that we are serving more than 1/3 of the active Belgian population. Now, maybe looking at digital identities and their success factors, we believe that there are a couple of criteria that should be met. First of all, it's the scope of the solution. So if you look at IT'sMe, for example, we combine authentication with signature, which is pretty rare actually in the world of digital identities, and the combination of all those elements, so this wide scope really contributed to its success. Then secondly, obviously, I talked about security, which is very important. It is necessary or fundamental for digital identities to have the necessary accreditation levels. So we are compliant with banking regulation, with the ISO 27000 standards, and obviously also with eIDAS. So if you look at eIDAS, eIDAS governs the digital identity landscape and tries to receive or get to a bigger harmonization across Europe, I would say. And in terms of identification means we comply with the level of assurance high level. For the signature, we are recognized as being a qualified signature, which means that we are equivalent to a handwritten signature. So that's certainly an advantage as well. And then a third success factor for digital identities, for IT'sMe, but also in a broader context, is the fact that the solution can be used both in the public and in the private sector. So IT'sMe is kind of a specific example, I would say, because we were a private initiative. So the founders and the shareholders are 7 private companies, but in Belgium we have a very close and tight collaboration with the government, because with IT'sMe you can, for example, unlock or access more than 2,000 government platforms. And the collaboration between this, the government and the private sector really has been beneficial to all the parties. For now, we are focusing on the Belgian market, but obviously digital identity is a key factor also in the whole debate of European data sovereignty, European digital sovereignty. So we also want to expand into Europe. And so if you look at that debate and making the link with the questions that were introduced earlier, one of the aspects that is really important is to evolve towards an ecosystem that is truly interoperable. And what do we mean with interoperable? We mean that it should be possible to use those kinds of solutions across sectors, so public and private sector, and also across geographical boundaries. So with the eIDAS regulation, we already made a very important step in that direction, because the regulation aims to harmonize the standards across countries, but it focuses mainly on the public sector today. And the translation of those standards in the different countries is not necessarily the same. And so those are, for example, aspects we need to work on to make sure that solutions such as IT'sMe or others can be used across geographical boundaries. Then making maybe the link to some other values, because that was also one of the questions. So next to this interoperability, what is also fundamental, I think, for Europe to achieve digital sovereignty is to have a regulatory framework that adheres to the highest standards of security and absolute respect for privacy. And then in order to foster adoption, next to interoperability, obviously user experience will be key, but also inclusion. It also came up in one of the previous debates. I think if there's one thing that the pandemic has shown the last couple of months, then it is that digital is no longer an option. It is a mandatory aspect to be able to participate in the digital economy. And so when we think about technological evolution, we should make sure from the start that we cater for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you to you. It was so interesting. There's a lot of thoughts that arise me from your intervention, but we'll have a few time to do so. But I'm going to pass to the last of our participants today, to Jean-Claude Guinossi. Please, Mr. Guinossi, the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me today. It's a great pleasure to participate in this panel and this discussion. And and especially in this hot topic about digital development and sovereignty in Europe. So first, let me give you a perspective of what Quant is about. So Quant is the first European search engine built by European for European and wanted to scale globally. So as it is time for change, and Quant today responds to a rising demand for data privacy and digital sovereignty. The project was born in 2013 with the ambition to create an alternative to the dominant search engine. So no need to name the elephant in the room, but clearly that's we have built our search, our technology in a way that's to offer a different view, a different perspective to our users. So that's on NBA's approach. What we do is that we are working around the privacy by design approach and technology. So it's a full respect of the users, whatever it is on private or public or companies or individuals. We want to build an alternative that will become, hopefully in the next few years, a credible alternative to the leader, the worldwide leader in search. And of course, we'll come back on this point, but alliance with global companies such as Huawei or Microsoft we are working with are critical for the potential success of Quant as a, valid alternative. So what we do, in fact, is we are building our engine. We are building with a partnership or with clearly investment in our technology algorithm, indexing the wide majority of the web today. So it is a long scale and term ambition, but we think that's today and more than ever, that's we answer to the risk of losing freedom in Europe, freedom to understand the web and to be in the position to offer an objective vision of the web and don't create a bubble with the hyper profiling of results that the usual suspect provide to European inhabitant users or companies. So what we have done in the recent years is that it's trying to scale in France, then starting to build our European search engine in Europe. And of course, it is very important to position Quant as a search engine on the key pillars about privacy by design, no tracking, and no reselling any personal data. And it is pretty simple. We don't resell personal users' data because we don't collect, and we don't need to collect data to deliver great result. It's all about algorithm, AI, and technology. And we know today, and our main, let's say, competitors or the company that's operating the search business know that hyper profiling are not needed to deliver great result. It's more about semantic and natural language processing or technology that's create the value, the quality, and the freshness of the result. And it is critical for us that we can demonstrate that as well. European can create search engine because we are still a very important portal to enter in internet today. More than 60% of Europeans start by entering a search engine before navigating or browsing. So it's critical that we have this proposition to Europeans and to our partners that we have respect to the dominant position. And yes, we know that we have a situation today where the globalization have brought, for many reasons, a problem that's dominant search engine today in Europe. That's all more than 90% of the market share is not anymore acceptable. It's not anymore acceptable because that creates a one-way vision. does not give the diversity of European needs, individual needs, and public sector needs. So we are fighting hard for this project. That's to make a reality. And thanks to some great partnership we had over the last 2 years with the French government, and to thank that the Minister of Digital Affairs, Cédrico, have decided, and it's a great move, that Quant is now the search engine by default for the French administration. So we expect that as we show our quality, we show our result and impartiality of result in an open web, that we will have other government, other institutions that will adopt Quant. And it is the diversity, or maybe other search engine in Europe as well, that's probably propose something different, something more open to the interest of our European inhabitants and scale. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Mr. Ginozzi. Just at the same time you were talking about Quant, I was downloading Quant to my own computer, personal computer, because I didn't have till now. It sounds absolutely interesting. I think that this is the way to behave inside Europe, within Europe, the kind of things that we have to boost from public institutions as well. So I look forward to have you at the European institutions early. As I said before, I have a lot of questions about this. Your statements. It seems we don't have still questions from our audience. I encourage you to do so if you like. But first of all, you know my own background as a legislator and a member of the parliament. I'm eager to listen to you about the question of the framework, the ethical framework about the management of the new technologies. And I don't know if you. This is a question for all of you. I don't know if you think that legal certainty must be or could be better say could be an added value to European entrepreneurs or European business outside our own legal bases that are in this moment and are going to be more exigent than in other part of the world. I don't know if you think that could be more than a burden and an added value in order to compete outside for European business and European entrepreneurs. I don't know if you have any idea about this. And I take advantage of this question to a question as well to you about what is your vision about the package, the new European legislative package that is going to be drafted this year. Any of you, please, we'd like to have a lively debate. Feel free to interrupt in a gentle manner, of course, and feel free to intervene. Whoever of you would like to respond the first, the floor is yours. Mr. Liu, please.
Thank you very much, MEP Gachet-Blanco. At Huawei, we actually we fully support the Commission's approach to the digital service, those service act, specifically to classify the
sorry, Mr. Liu, if I may interrupt you, I have problems to listen clearly to you. I don't know if I'm the only one.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, much better.
Now better than before.
I'm sorry. So I'm saying that we fully support the Commission's approach to the digital services. This Digital Service Act, Digital Market Act, and specifically to classify the gatekeepers based on how much European data they hold, as well as blacklisting the business model exploiting both the European startups and ordinary citizens. data. And our experience is in history. Europe are famous by setting rules, setting standard. In terms of the setting rules, GDPR or Cybersecurity Act are quite famous and has been adopted by many parts of the world. And in terms of the standard setting, that in our industry, from 3G, 2G, 3G, and 4G, and 5G becomes the overall one single standard worldwide. It is Europe played a key role as a standard setting. But in terms of the security or the new technology, all these challenges, we believe that Europe should adopt a zero trust approach and unlock open strategic autonomy to make technology available in a safe and secure way to its citizens. And in the future, based on the IoT or the AI new technologies for the industry as well. So we also strongly support that the Commission's commitment to the technology neutrality, encouraging open source and open research, and emphasizing on the human-centric approach to AI, as you mentioned earlier. In fact, Huawei is working closely on development of the third alternative mobile platform ecosystem to compete with the duopoly, the elephant in the room, which is iOS from Apple and Android from Google, as a direct result, as a consequence of losing the ability of pre-install the Google mobile services on our new devices. So we have developed the Harmony OS and HMS, which is Huawei Mobile Services, to be as open as possible, as inclusive as possible, to be very frankly as European as possible as well. So unlike the existing closed mobile system, the HMS core functionality are enabled by the third party, mainly European developers and apps that are designed to be more open and secured, which Quant in this case has been working with us, providing the mobile search engine to all the new Huawei mobile users. For example, another example is our location and mapping services are managed in collaboration with the Dutch suppliers TomTom, and all the data collected stays in Europe. So those are numbers of initiatives we have been making our efforts to develop again the alternatives, the options for the market. I think finally the day, based on our cooperation with the massive European developers, we can make something, the alternative ecosystem for the new technology, no matter is a mobile devices operating system or is the AI platform or the general computing platform. So to create the alternatives, to create the options for the market, and those joint efforts will be respecting the European rules. I think finally we play a key role by utilizing those joint efforts to the rest of the world, provide those alternatives and options to the other countries, in the whole world, which has been suffered from the same duopoly situation in many cases. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Mrs. De Bruyn.
Yeah, if I may add maybe a couple of points. So to your question on regulation, I think it's very important to have the regulatory framework that is very clear. I think we've also proven in Europe with the GDPR regulation that we really can take leadership on certain topics, and it creates a stable environment where actors can play in. So that's obviously very important. Another point I wanted to mention, and I think it's also something that is happening today, if regulation evolves and if new frameworks are developed, then I think it's also important to link with private sectors. So I've stressed also in my previous intervention the importance of bringing together public and private sector. And I think there as well, the consultations as they are being done today are very important to make sure we all evolve in the same direction, and we provide also the transition path towards those new frameworks. And then maybe a third point on regulation, I think we should also ask ourselves the question how far regulation should go. I think it should provide a clear framework with clear rules in which we have to operate and rules we have to comply with. But at the same time, I also strongly believe that regulation should remain technology agnostic, because technology is evolving. And so as an actor in the technology space, we should also have, in a way, the liberty to explore different technological paths, as long as we comply with the regulatory framework and the rules that are being set at regulatory level. So, thank you.
Yes, in this regard, I assure you that it was impossible to make a step in advance about the new research, the new possibilities of things like artificial intelligence. And when we are dealing with this, like as a legislator, you have to be so cautious to make regulation future-proof. And it's not so simple. Please, Mr. Ginosi.
Yeah, I would just reinforce what Abraham and Stephanie have just mentioned. That's finally we have this digital act that's going to enter in act, and Quant and other, for example, search engine have fighted since 2017 to break the position dominant of Google in Europe in the search. It's not acceptable anymore. That's a company have not or just told the data of our European users with more than 90% market share. So we need to have a clear rule. And when such a company is too big to compete with because they are setting the rules, we have to have the regulators that interfere here. So that's just to establish the rule and establish just the guidance for the company to compete openly and in a fair approach. So it is time to move forward. And of course, probably we have seen with the pandemic challenge that the weakness position of Europe respect to the global platform, and often they are from North America. So we have to have this open business, open opportunity to bring diversity. And it is with the regulation that's come, and specifically on our search engine industry, that was, and Abraham just mentioned, that it was not acceptable that on the Android system, Google made the system and decide the rules. And at the end of the day, for years, search and startup like Quant have not been able to address officially for the mobile operating system the European inhabitant, just because that the point of investment was just impossible for us to reach. When we know that's in the without any regulation for Europeans, in fact, we came that's in a position that's we have seen, and it is now in the end of the Department of Justice in America as well, that Google was able to just to close the market with paying billions to leading, smartphone or OEMs just to have the default search engine position. So we think that we have to a fair business and open business, and we have to compete with the same tools, and of course with the new Digital Service Act that Mr. Breton are pushing and providing, that's give the opportunity to share the data that's for years and decades that's such company have built and maintaining with their own rules. So that's open the rules, give the way that's the European company to compete and to partner to build alliance with Asian company, with a Chinese company, with a North American company, or whatever. The point is that definitively it's time to act.
Yeah, indeed, I said. It seems the panel is moving. We have a question to each other of our participants. I'm going to read them and please answer them in the same order. The first one is for Stephanie. If we can look at personal data as an asset, are you developing intelligent tools to help people actively manage personal data as an asset, sharing, selling, disallowing analysis? This is a question from Igor Perko. And to Mr. Abraham Liu, you just mentioned that Huawei is helping EU digital sovereignty. Commissioner Breton recently wrote that it has become clear that Europe should be the one to set the rules, and it is not enough to simply rely on trust. What do you think about this? This is a question from Beth Manning. And to our last participant, Jean-Claude, how confident are you in developing greater market share in the short term? What is the European? Are there ambitions globally? This is a question to Mr. Ginossi. Please, Mrs. De Bruyn, the first yours.
Well, actually, data privacy is becoming increasingly important. So it also comes back in a lot of European declarations. The ultimate objective we all have is to give control over personal data back to the individual. And so in this entire data ecosystem and data sharing economy, there are a lot of partners that will be playing a role. So you have, on the one hand, you have the data sources, so basically the places where your data are stored, and the vaults you will also, in a way, manage as an individual. You have, on the other end of the spectrum, the relying parties, so the companies that will use all those data points. And then you have, in a way, the tools and the systems that will enable that data exchange. And that's exactly where digital identities, such as It's Me, want to play a role. So basically, and it's already something that I briefly mentioned before, we capture the digital identity data that are on the identity card, but we will not manage all the other data that are around an individual. What we will do, though, is make the link with the data vaults managed by the individual or other data sources, for example, data sources managed by the government or by other private companies. And we will give the individual the chance that, thanks to his digital identity, he can share the data. So to give you a very concrete example, suppose you apply for a new job, then you would be able to grant access with your digital identity to your future employer to go and get your diploma at the university by giving an explicit consent with your digital identity. And so that's why digital identities, or that's where digital identities play a role. One of our key principles is what you see is what you sign. So nothing will be shared without explicit consent of the user. So once an end user wants to share a data point, he can explicitly approve the fact that that data point can be fetched in that source, and he is willing to exchange it with another party. So that's the area where we want to play a role.
Thank you. Mr. Liu.
Thank you very much. I noticed that you mentioned about the Commissioner's Breton's recent speech said that it has become clear that Europe should be the one to set rules, and it is not enough to simply rely on trust. On this point, I fully agree with Commissioner Breton. And as I mentioned earlier, Huawei has been working in Europe for 20 years, and we have been a trusted partner in Europe for 20 years. And we know that Europe played a key role in terms of the setting the global standards and also setting the rules. From Huawei, we are not worried about the rules. We are worried about no rules. So as far as there is rules that provide kind of certainties to the industry. So from Huawei, as I mentioned earlier, we contribute to the Europeans' digital sovereignty by 3 dimensions. By investing in Europe, and as I mentioned earlier, we are operating in almost each and every member states. We're providing the digital enabling technology, ICT infrastructure to the operator, to the European industry and the citizens through the collaboration with the operator. And we are, in the next phase, we are bringing the enabling technology to enable the vertical digital transformation. And secondly, we have been setting up initiatives, by open source, work on the open source, open governance model, and on the smart devices operating system. working together with Quant and TomTom and many other European developers to create alternative for the world. From the being suffered from the duopoly, and also we respect the European legislative about the digital service, the upcoming this directive 2.0. So we believe that we will be a good example of respecting the European rules, and by working together with the European partners, to create the alternative ecosystem, so that leveraging on Huawei's global operation in 170 countries, we believe the European rules or European values will be well received by many other people across the world, not only in Europe.
Like to answer the question?
Yeah, the question was how confident I am in developing market share in Europe in short term. I have a great confidence. It's critical that we have the condition that we can grow. Of course, if the barrier of entry are too huge for us, penetrate the market will start in some point. But of course, I mentioned that we had the support on moving to the public sector in France, and we are working with some of your colleagues, Iban, in some other MEP in Italy or in Germany to have the opportunity to get Quant adopted by the parliament, by the MEPs, etc. But it is as well with the opportunity to embed at the origin when building the smartphone, the PCs, that we give the opportunity and open market that's alternative like Quant can be embedded just in the different devices. So we are growing fast now. We have seen a good traction in France. We are over 5 million monthly active users and 7 million in Europe, but it is still very small respect to the huge potential we have within Europe or worldwide. So we have as well North American or Australian users, but it is thanks to that where and how we are proposed to the internet users. That means today 55% of the internet usage is through smartphone. Thanks to the partnership we have with Huawei, for example, on the HMS devices, we have been able to be selected, and it was a risk for our partner. That's to have Quant as a default search engine in France or in Germany or in Italy, because of course we're not as strong as the North American search. But clearly, it is an opportunity step by step to grow. So our ambition in the next 5 years, with some regulation opportunity, but as well the effort to acquire new users to get at 10% market share in Europe. So if we consider that 300 million internet users in Europe are the target, let's say like this, that's if we are able to reach in the next 3 years something about between 40 to 50 millions users, that will be a great achievement. That give this opportunity to understand and to use internet and the search engine differently, and with just this diversity that is critical and cherished in Europe.
Indeed, you have a long path to work on in advance.
Yeah, it's a long-term project. Yeah.
We have another last question from the audience to all of you, to all the panelists, from Tony Cox, and I'm going to read out loud. Regarding concerns about the security of equipment used within networks, should we aim to have the same rules and tests for all suppliers regardless of geographical origin? Such tests could and should extend to the condition of employees within the supply chain. Whoever would like to respond? Mr. Liu.
Thank you very much. Very important question, indeed. You know, I always when we talk about the standard for the security, I used to use one metaphor. You know, it's like every day, every time when we go to the airport, we pass the security check. You know, no matter what passport you are holding, you know, you pass the same frame. You know, if you're having some metal, you know, together with you, it will alarm. So one simple thing, you know, common standard applied to everyone is simply the best practices. It's very simple but work. You know, if you try to identify, you know, differentiate the players by different passports, then there are vulnerability, you know, over there. Specifically, like in Huawei's 5G discussion or cybersecurity about the network infrastructure discussion. You know that Huawei do not have operation in US, for example. You know, and we are working very closely with the European operators in Europe and in Africa, in many other parts of the world. But does this mean, you know, the network in US is safer than Europe? Obviously, is not. You know, the outgoing President Donald Trump used to say, you know, worried about his own phone cybersecurity in White House. You know, it's the equipment are provided by others. You know, definitely not Huawei. So simply, the European approach is to set up a high standard for everyone, and we believe only by setting a high standard in the security or in AI whatsoever, you know, common standard, not everyone will have to respect those rules, and those actions or those approaches has to be verifiable. You know, so that the certification, you know, is also very important. And again, I firmly believe that Europe have the tradition of setting those good rules, you know, provide the certainty for the industry. And I'm looking forward to work very closely with our partners, our customers in Europe, to respect those common rules. And we believe, you know, this will be a very positive, you know, move for the industry. Otherwise, you know, without a safe, you know, technology, you know, without the security insurance to the public audience, the citizens or the industries, the digital economy or the digital world, you know, has no, you know, condition to move forward. Thank you very much.
Any other of you would like to respond to this question?
I would say a word, of course, that I think it's probably not only the case for Quant, but on a tech landscape, we are all investing a lot of money in improving our infrastructure and security. It's probably one line in my P&L that is the most expensive one. That's I need to secure for the millions of search, billions of search per year, the security and the quality of what I deliver. So critically, that's rules are critical. And maybe at some point as well, because we see that the volume of attacks, the volume of spam, we are building, algorithm with an anti-spam system that's cost a fortune. The point is that rules and probably certification to operate should be, enforced at some point. And yes, that should be something that we have a clear understanding of. If you want to work in Europe and with European, you need to have a certain rules and probably certification to, and it shows we are securing our infrastructure and security in building something that it is transparent with a rule that works.
Mrs.
Well, I don't have much to add to what was already mentioned by Mr. Liu and Mr. Hinosi. So for us, it's the same. You're treating digital identity data, so security is obviously on the top of the list. And as mentioned before, I think there are a couple of areas where some leeway should be given, such as technology choices, etc., to allow for innovation and continuous evolution. But on things such as security and data privacy, the rules should be absolutely the same for everyone to create a level playing field and a stable situation in which we can operate. So fully aligned with what the two other guest speakers have mentioned.
And I think exactly the same, so I'm not going to add anything. Unfortunately, we don't have so much time in advance. We'll have staff to speak and to debate for the whole morning, but we don't have time anymore. So I'm going to end in this point. Thank you very much. This panel was of very high level, great. It was an honor to be part of this as a moderator. And I'd like to remind our viewers that the next panel is a kind or such of fireside conversation on strategic autonomy and the case for global partnerships. So stay tuned on the main stage if you like to attend. And just by the way, Happy New Year to all, because I was at other panels. I forget that maybe we have another people in every of them. So Happy New Year to all of you. I hope that this year will be better than the other. It's not so difficult to be so. Thank you very much to all. Thank you very much to our participants, and see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Happy New Year.